All right, thank you everyone for joining us. We are going to get started with our webinar today. We're going to be discussing how different destinations are preparing for recovery. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to our discussion today. My name is Jenny Rose. I'm joined by Mike Trippi, our creative director, and Chelsea Cipriani, our director of client success for our CRM platform. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through some strategies to leverage your technology as we begin the process of recovery. So we're going to talk about ways you can use the CRM system as well as your website to really effectively communicate with your community as well as with your visitors as your communities begin to open up and welcome visitors back and generate some economic impact for your communities. And then we have a great panel of destination leaders here who are joining us today to kind of share their unique perspectives on how their communities are preparing for their recovery. Hopefully get some ideas going about, how you can potentially be communicating with your partners and with your community and getting started on a really successful recovery for yourself as well. We are recording this webinar. We'll be sharing today's discussion with you on our website, so feel free to keep an eye out for that. And also use the Q&A feature in the Zoom platform to ask questions throughout the discussion. We will definitely be looking forward to answering the questions that you have for our marketing experts as well as for our panelists. So we want to reiterate something that we talked about a month ago when all of this was really getting going. We talked about ways that you can leverage your technology to share what businesses are still open in your community, how folks are, local restaurants that are offering takeout, things like that. We wanted to kind of revisit that discussion because some of those systems that we talked about setting up at that time are still really relevant as you look towards reopening. And as more businesses start to welcome back folks into their brick and mortar locations, as we start to really kind of hit this recovery and reopening phase for our community. So at a high level, really looking at how you can set up systems to make it easy for your local business community to reach you quickly and share how their business is operating in this post-shutdown environment. We want to be able to drive engagement both with our partners and with the community, just make sure that we're getting the word out about these systems that we're setting up and letting know folks that we're a resource to help elevate and amplify what their business is doing as we are reopening. And then how we're updating and marketing that content to activate the local community, but also bring folks in as folks start to move around and travel again. So the first phase, setting up systems, really, kind of looking at how you can use technology to create a structure and a way for you to capture content in a really quick and efficient way. One of the easiest ways you can do that is create a form on your website that allows local businesses to reach out to you, fill out a couple quick points of information to let them know so that they can let you know how they are welcoming visitors back, how they are kind of operating. Are they utilizing enhanced cleaning procedures, things like that. There's also a lot of ways that you can leverage the CRM to do that heavy lifting as well. So if you choose to share the extranet with your community, allowing your partners to log into the extranet, submit deals as a way to kind of communicate how they are operating as they're reopening, or creating a specific category or detail in the CRM system to capture that information as well. Chelsea's going to walk through that in a little bit more detail, but for example, we mentioned a website form. This is a really quick option that you can create. It's a good, easy way that you can share a quick link, invite your community, your local business owners to put some quick information in that you can then consume that information and turn it around and share it with your audience. Obviously, a lot of you on this call are utilizing the IDSS CRM system, and that's a fantastic option to utilize as you're kind of putting these structures in place. Chelsea, do you want to kind of talk about how you can use the CRM extranet to get that information from your partners?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you everybody for joining today. In some of the previous webinars, we've gone through kind of in more detail about the detail types and categories within IDSS and how they can be utilized. But we'll just kind of run through a couple of examples here. So what we're showing here is just an example of using a detail, so a deals detail, which you can then expose on the extranet for your partners to log into the extranet and update. This can be updated in the CRM, but then also from the partner side on the extranet. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see a sample here of just a client utilizing the deals feature to display on their website. And this is just an example of how it could look here. And another feature that we kind of went over is a category for COVID-19. And utilizing this, you can have a specific category, which will then show these directories in a certain area on your website specific to COVID-19. If that was something that you had set up, here's, just a display of that. And then here's just like another example of how to use that for Visit Pittsburgh. You'll see here health and safety tab at the top here above this listing. And if you wanted to utilize something like this, you could just get in touch with your web team, whether it's Tempest or a different web vendor, and you can utilize the details and amenities for this type of feature. So here's just a quick little example here. Maybe you have a health and safety text area on your detail type, which will allow that to pull over to your website, whether it's in the listing itself or on the deal or to that certain category as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely talking with a lot of our destination partners on how to set this up for their specific structure, their unique website, and kind of how they're sharing that information currently. So Chelsea and her team are available to kind of help walk you through this. We're definitely here to support you. But one of the things that we're kind of hearing consistently is that, as we look forward to recovery and engaging with visitors, visitors are going to need to feel safe before they're really able to actively plan and commit to travel. So looking at the type of information that we're able to share on our websites to communicate how our local business community is shifting their operations to keep those visitors safe and help them feel secure when they are in our communities is definitely a great option, and definitely something that we're here to support you as you kind of wrap your arms around that. So as you set up those systems, definitely, one of the big things is letting the community know that this system exists and can be a great way to showcase that how their unique business is responding to visitors. Just a quick reminder, we are recording the webinar, so don't worry about having to take notes or crazy things. We will be posting this and sharing this with all of you after we are done with the webinar. So look to our website later today for a recording of this. Also be sure to use the Q&A portion of Zoom if you have a question for us or our panelists later. But yeah, kind of looking at how we can utilize our technology to drive that engagement, get the word out to your local business community about this great resource that you're developing for them. Really kind of looking at how we can reach our partners. Of course, email is a great way to do that. A lot of you have been doing a fantastic job, not only reaching out to travelers through your email, but also reaching out to your partners, letting them know that this resource is available, checking in with them regularly, making sure that they understand that not only does this exist, but also letting them know how they can leverage this information and these systems, and kind of following up, keeping that conversation going and making sure that we're top of mind as a really great recovery resource for our local business community. Meet Minneapolis has been doing a really great job reaching out to their community. They've been on the phone with individual partners, talking to them and connecting with them that way. They've also been utilizing email to reach out. This is an example of an earlier email they sent out, but it's a really great example of how you can articulate the specific information that you're looking for from the partners. So if you do decide to use deals or different categories, things like that in the CRM system to communicate information related to a recovery, make sure that you're communicating that in a really effective way, letting the partners know what kind of information you can help amplify and share with potential visitors. A lot of you utilize the CRM email system. Chelsea, there's a lot of things that our teams can do to kind of look at, make sure that essentially we're capturing all of the partners and we're not leaving anybody out.
Yeah, definitely. So there are several different queries that can be used within IDSS. This is one example of them. For example, so this is a contacts active, and what you can do from these types of queries with contacts is you can run certain search criteria for your contacts from your partners. And then once you do click preview for that query, you can then create a distribution list or add to a distribution list. So this is just a great way to, if you've been updating your database, then maybe you want to go in and create a new distribution list just to make sure all of that fresh data is in there. You can also run queries for different detail types to see what detail types are available on which partners do not have them, etc. And then just one more point to what Jenny was mentioning about sending a guide to your partners. If you need any help with that, definitely reach out to our support team. We can help draft up those diagrams or those how-to steps for you so you can utilize them in your emails as well.
Perfect. And then as you're getting all of those systems up in place, your partners are engaging. Of course, we want to amplify that information, share that with our audience. So really, you know, one of the cool things about setting up these systems is it really streamlines your content updating process. It lays a foundation for you to be really efficient. You don't have to have a ton of manual updates and being revisiting a million different web pages. It allows you to be really super efficient. Of course, encouraging again, you know, to those partners to reach out to you regularly and updating how their businesses are reacting in these first couple weeks or months of the recovery phase. We definitely anticipate that there's going to be a lot of shifting with how businesses are adapting and evolving. So it's definitely, there's going to be a lot going on. So the more that we can lean into these systems, the easier it's going to be for you to aggregate and share that information. One other thing to keep in mind for you and your partners, some things to just kind of make sure that they are aware of. We're seeing that Google and Google in particular, their technology right now is very, very sensitive to coronavirus. There's a lot of profiteering happening around the virus and COVID-19. So they are being very aggressive about taking down advertising or messaging that they see as trying to profit off of this. So something to be cognizant of and share with your partners, just making sure that they are not running afoul of Google's content guidelines as they are reopening and welcoming visitors back. One of the other things that we are looking at is, you know, again, with visitors needing to feel safe as they begin to travel again, what types of content do we need to have on our destination websites to help visitors really feel safe and secure as they start to travel again? So a lot of our destinations have started incorporating healthcare service information in the plan your trip or travel tools section of your website. Basically looking at this as an opportunity to help visitors understand what resources are available to them as they come to visit you, and ultimately just make them feel really safe about coming for a visit again. You know, at the end of the day, you all are experts at what makes your community special, and you're also experts at marketing. So there's a really great opportunity here for you to leverage that expertise to help your community recover. We've seen you guys have been doing a great job sharing things on social media, leaning on your network. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can get at sharing this content in an environment where, you know, a lot of us are not able to do paid marketing right now. Totally okay. There's a lot of ways that you can get creative, you know, leveraging your social media, leaning on your local network of writers, local publications, influencers that you may know who can amplify your message and get that ball rolling. And of course, your email is a great resource that you know, that you can be continually reaching out and engaging with visitors. We've seen a lot of fantastic email, creative use of email lately. Our friends in Travel Manitoba have utilized email to crowdsource content and celebrate their destination. Visit Norfolk has done a fantastic job of this as well. Visit Colorado Springs created an amazing Rocky Mountain Zen campaign and launched this campaign pretty much through email, kind of helping share tools and ways that people can get that kind of Colorado Springs experience as well, so that they're engaging their locals and they're also engaging travel audiences that aren't able to visit them in person right now. Visit Stockton has been doing a great job of essentially replacing that traditional events calendar with virtual events. So kind of utilizing this as a way to keep your audience engaged, able to connect with some of the things that make your community really unique. And then as you're able to bring back your paid media, of course, you know, social gives you a lot of great options from both the geographic and interest-based targeting, but, you know, also leaning into things like programmatic and other channels for digital media, giving you really strategic and targeted ways to find visitors who are going to be, find those audience members that are going to be really likely to travel. You know, we're looking at right now starting local and utilizing the fact that, you know, as these stay-at-home orders are lifted, there's an opportunity for us to get the local community into your restaurants, into your boutiques to drive economic impact fast. And then as our drive markets and things like that start to loosen up and we start to see travelers moving around, you can then pivot your strategy into those audiences that are and those geographic targets that are going to generate overnight stays for your hotels. Advanced TV is a great option as well. It gives you the option to purchase essentially television commercials on streaming services like Hulu, CBS, NBC. It gives you a way to essentially create a television commercial at a fraction of the cost. A lot of you have been doing amazing jobs creating beautiful videos, so this is a really great way to quickly get that into the homes of potential visitors. You know, one of the things that is really important to keep in mind as you're looking at and yes, we just got a question from Bill Fitzgerald is advanced the same as connected TV? Yes, exactly. So it's basically a way for you to run television advertisements through a programmatic trade desk. So instead of kind of creating a direct buy with a television station, it allows you to access connected TVs that have streaming devices. So it gives you a way to amplify your messaging, and by keeping this all in digital, it avoids you having to have locked in deals. So you can pivot messaging quickly as data comes in. You can change your creative, change your messaging as needed. That's something that we're seeing as really an important facet of these, the messages that are getting created right now. You know, similar to media, you want to make sure that any creative message that you come up with is going to be very flexible so that you can pivot over time. So we're going to bring in Mike, our creative director, to kind of talk about how some of the campaigns that we've seen and ways that you can create that messaging in a really flexible way to lay the foundation for an awesome recovery moving forward.
Thanks, Jenny. Hello, everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit about just marketing in general during the recovery. The first thing we really want to stress, though, before diving in is that there's really no blanket solution. You know, for the foreseeable future, everyone is going to be at a different stage of recovery and targeting audiences that are going to be at different levels of receptiveness to really any promotional messaging. So it's important to stay connected to your communities, your drive markets, and really keep an eye on their pulse as you start planning to promote travel again. What we can say confidently universally is to choose your words carefully and think about how your messaging might be received. Social media is already prepared to call out those who might appear tone deaf or opportunistic. So try to avoid platitudes, restating the obvious. We've all kind of been stuck at home listening to a lot of the same corporate messages. So as you start talking to consumers, bring something new to the conversation and try to demonstrate your brand's benefits in a unique or creative way. Destinations that we think will rebound most quickly are those viewed as getaway destinations, people removed from large urban areas. A client we're working with right now is Georgia's Blue Ridge, and we're kind of helping them take their spring campaign that was put on hold due to the crisis and start to retool it and get ready for summertime. So for those unfamiliar with Blue Ridge, it's about 3 hours away from downtown Atlanta. And to give you just a little bit of a better understanding of our identity, we've got their positioning statement, which reads, "City dwellers seeking an escape far from ordinary will feel re-energized by the picturesque landscape of Georgia's Blue Ridge. With countless activities waiting in the mountains, our quaint town is where both relaxation and adventure live." So our campaign coming out is really going to touch on their brand themes: escape, nature, relaxation, and fun. We feel really confident that the outdoors is something that people are really going to be interested in those drive markets, just given that we've kind of all been stuck inside for so long. So as far as our audiences, think about how you're going to customize those messages based on their own unique circumstances. From our point of view, one of the big benefits for Georgia for families is that, there's going to be fewer rules. Kids don't have to worry about homeschooling or interrupting their parents during the Zoom webinars. They're able to kind of get back outside and have fun and really be themselves. Our kind of common thread through the whole campaign is really just kind of stepping away from the outside world, because there's a safety in that messaging. It's not just necessarily focusing on the homework or the office, but, getting away from the constant news cycle, the crowded urban areas, and really just kind of giving people a break to kind of enjoy themselves with a much different experience. From a couple's perspectives, it's breaking up our current routine, having a change in scenery or eating a meal prepared by somebody else. As we just start to have this newfound appreciation for travel, demonstrating that we should also have a newfound appreciation for romance and date night, really kind of getting back to, enjoying the weekend versus having it just kind of blend right into Monday morning. And then from, our millennials perspective or the outdoor adventurers, it's about, getting off the couch and being more active. As far as photography, try to be conscious of the number of people in your images. Maybe you can show two couples that have a decent amount of space around them, but avoid showing crowds or places with a lot of high traffic. Just for a while, there's going to be a strong sensitivity about really any imagery that might be perceived as potentially helping spread the virus. In regards to deal seekers, there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunity for them with partners having really competitive pricing, but try not to be tone deaf with really aggressive language. In your landing pages, we can kind of flesh out the offers more, but as far as a creative perspective, it's more about embracing these unusual circumstances. And if travel makes sense for you personally, trying to view this situation from a glass half full perspective or a window of opportunity that, we could potentially take advantage of. So our Blue Ridge case study is really kind of a more smaller tactical campaign, but we wanted to show you a few other examples from larger initiatives, unfortunately not executed by us, but do share some similar thinking and a similar creative rationale. One really great campaign outside the travel industry, Timberland Footwear released a video for Earth Day, which we think really resonates with destination organizations because it's entirely focused on missing nature. This video is essentially one long love letter to nature, talking about how we've missed its experiences, and it eventually pivots to a call to action when we're back. The when we're back is really kind of nice because it's a flexible timeline and open to evolving if things or the situations, start to change. What's also nice about the spot is that it kind of suggests that we're going to be given a second chance to do things better on our own terms. And we think that type of messaging can really resonate with those who maybe procrastinated travel pre-COVID, but now kind of wish that they had done something earlier. So they kind of have this second chance to get back and start planning for a future trip. If you've got some concern that, your community might give you some pushback as you start promoting visitation, then, obviously rethink your strategy a little bit. We've seen national parks in Canada post-crisis promote being smart and responsible when visiting their area. So, take some time and think about, what does responsible travel look like for your destination? And try to become an advocate and be the voice that determines how that begins to roll out. Some examples are you could point your drive market visitors to hidden gems that, that increased traffic won't really impact your community as much. So try to give some thought how you can lead the best recovery for your destination before really approaching some of those creative messages. Savannah's using this opportunity to really kind of refocus on locals and their drive markets. Their partners haven't just missed the national visitors, they've missed the locals too. And because they don't have to get on a plane to travel, they're our easiest to engage with. So similar to some of the other examples, we've gone through, there's really a thoughtfulness to the copy. It's been a while, we've missed you. This isn't a hard sell. And the experience they're talking about aren't being oversold either. If you feel like there is some uncertainty in your destination, then definitely list what experiences people should expect when they're in their area. So really, they've got a better understanding of what they're getting themselves into. And then lastly, Norfolk has gotten a ton of attention for this changed campaign, or change course campaign. Why we think it's really strong is because they've essentially created a rallying cry through a common phrase that I think we've all said at some point during this, when this is over. And their kind of messaging that has been crowdsourced is really authentic, it's personal, it's heartfelt. So this campaign is really moving, and its appreciative and optimistic nature and tone is a really stark contrast to what we're seeing on most TV screens. So this is just a really super effective piece at uniting people and having them come on board with this kind of change in direction, and hopefully returning for a visit sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. We want to bring in our first panelist, Rob Lopez, the Vice President and Director of Visit McAllen, Texas. Rob, you've got a really interesting challenge ahead of you as you look at these marketing campaigns. You're not only marketing domestically, but a big chunk of your audience is also located in Mexico due to the location of your community. So how are you kind of structuring your campaigns and your recovery messaging to engage your full audience as you plan for recovery?
Yeah, you're right. Based on our geographic location, for those that don't know where McAllen is located in deep South Texas, down at the tip of Texas. We're 7 miles from the Mexican border. McAllen is the fifth largest. The McAllen metro area is the fifth largest MSA in Texas, with about 840,000. And our hospitality industry employs 7,500 people. So we really felt the impact right away. But you think of McAllen and the metro area of 840,000 people, but within a 150-mile radius, the population is 10 million, and that includes northern Mexico, specifically Monterrey, which has about 5 million people. And so we have a lot of people within a drive distance to us. McAllen itself is a binational, bicultural city. 86% of the population is Hispanic. So culturally, we handle situations differently. So understanding our culture and how we respond to certain marketing materials is definitely front of mind. And we're also unique because, where most cities have, their drive markets and then they have an airport, we also have international bridges. We have 2 international bridges, and that's a source of revenue for the city, along with the retail sales and hotel occupancy tax. So unlike some of my other counterparts that will speak later today, we're not necessarily a vacation destination. We don't have that main attraction like an aquarium or a zoo or that mainstay. What we really have built over the last 6 years, I would say, is our festivals and events, which we do on a huge scale. So based on all of the restrictions now on gatherings of sizes of groups, that's going to change. So as we wait to see how that starts coming back, we're going to have to position our message differently. A lot of our business, like I said, we're not a vacation destination. Corporate business travel, international business travel, a lot of government business comes here because of our location near the Rio Grande River. And then, of course, our Mexican leisure travel. Mexico accounts for 33% of our retail business and generates more than 1 billion in retail sales. And that translates to a lot of hotel occupancy and a lot of retail sales revenue that the city's missing out on. So we definitely are different. McAllen ourselves as a Visit McAllen, we're a small staff. We're a staff of 5, a department within our Chamber of Commerce. We're funded purely by the hotel occupancy tax. And as mentioned before, we market McAllen domestically, but also internationally. And, our messaging is very different in Mexico than it is domestically. And, we might, they might look like us, they might talk like us, but it's a very different way that they receive marketing messages. And so we work with a advertising and marketing agency in Monterrey, Mexico, to make sure that we are culturally getting out the right message. But as far as us as a department, we really focus on convention and sports tourism sales. We have great year-round weather. In December, you could be outdoors. It's 75 degrees on Christmas Day most of the time. So really, that's the majority of our business, and our recovery plan really focuses around that. And so, as y'all have probably heard on the news, there are certain states that are opening up sooner than others. Our shelter-in-place orders will be lifted effective Friday, May 1st. So as soon as that happens, retail shops, restaurants, movie theaters, libraries, and museums, they're going to be able to open at a 25% capacity. They do have to follow certain safety guidelines. That includes guidelines for their place of business, guidelines for their employees, and then also as customers, we are expected to follow certain guidelines as well. And that's in order to move through the different phases that the federal government has put in place, so we can get through those quickly. As I said, sports tourism is one of our biggest drivers in our tourism segments. And outdoor sports, what we've been tasked with opening Texas, the restrictions are that individuals may engage in outdoor sports, provided that the sports do not include contact with other participants, and there are no more than 4 participants playing the sport at any time. So that basically is tennis and golf. So at this time, the sports that drive tourism, which is soccer, football, youth baseball, softball, those for now, we won't be able to host any tournaments like that. And then effective May 11th, well, they've already started the program, is to initiate our statewide contact tracing program. They've already started to implement that a little bit April 27th, and then there'll be a fully mobilized contact tracing workforce in the state of Texas by May 11th. And that'll be up to 4,000 people that are going to be contact tracers that are going to help, mitigate the spread. What also makes us different, though, is that while we're following the state's guidelines for opening Texas, our bridges are under federal regulations. And so non-essential travel is restricted until May 30th. And that was, so April 30th, they extended that another 30 days. And so really that affects our timing of when we can market to our Mexican national visitors. Of course, we have to wait until our mall is fully open, and it's open, but there's still have those restrictions where a certain number of people can't be allowed in the store, the way you purchase contactless payments. So until the mall is fully open and people are allowed to go and really have the full mall experience, it's going to be challenging for us to market to our visitors in Mexico, because the number one reason they come here is to come shop at our mall. And then and so the mall situation and the bridge situation are heavily dependent on when and how we market to our Mexican national visitors. So in preparations for the successful reopening, us as an agency, I think that first 2 weeks was kind of a shock to us. The last 2 weeks in March, a lot of unknowns, a lot of gathering information. But right away, we implemented a new marketing plan. We shifted to the make the most of McAllen, and it really was aiming at uniting the community and providing a sense of comfort and making the most of the time that we have together with our family. In Mexico, it was Somos Familia, like we are family. And that's how we view our visitors from Mexico. This is like their second home. A lot of them do have family here. And so that messaging was a little different. And so right away, we started with a main video spot, and we repurposed a lot of footage that we had from other videos that we've done over the last year. And so we repurposed that footage and did a voiceover. And so without having to go shoot new footage, we were able to turn around a quick video that was very well received locally. But then we started doing smaller video pieces, video pieces on restaurants and curbside to go, or retail to go, which just recently opened. And another thing is our Wi-Fi hotspots. What the city, in partnership with our school district, did was created Wi-Fi hotspots in communities that don't have the access to Wi-Fi maybe at home. And so the entire city has open high-speed Wi-Fi. And so we were able to do that so that kids don't fall back on their school. So every student in McAllen ISD has an iPad from elementary to high school. And so having access to Wi-Fi so the students don't fall behind was very important. Parks and Rec programming, trying to keep people active, trying to keep people engaged and entertained. Another program that we have is our senior meals, where we provide meals to senior citizens. And so using that to using a video piece to get the word out on that. Grab and go meals for students that typically would eat lunch, maybe breakfast and lunch at school. We help the school district get the word out about that and encourage people to take advantage of that program. And, another areas where we wanted to get creative were, sports tourism is a big part of what we do in McAllen. And we just had to cancel the largest youth football tournament in the state of Texas. And football in Texas is huge. So for the last 6 years, we've hosted the largest youth football tournament in Texas. And unfortunately, we had to cancel that this year. But we were prepared for the tournament. And so we had this field stencil with their full color logo that we were going to, spray paint on the field, or we were going to paint on the field. And he said, you know what, let's use this still. And so we had our Parks and Rec prepare the field as if we were going to have the tournament. And then we just sent a quick message. Hey, it's become a tradition. You've been here the last 6 years, and we look forward to continuing that tradition in 2021. Did some nice drone shots of the field stencil and used previous footage from last year's tournament. And just using that, also to reach out to them and connect with them, but also to let them know that we're looking forward to having them next year. So we're just kind of planting that seed. You mentioned earlier in the presentation about crowdsourcing some of the videos locally. And that's what we did with our second video. So we had that first video that was kind of just a comforting main video spot. And then after people had been in their homes for a month, we looked on social media and we were finding great videos of people celebrating birthdays at home, activities in their backyard, just fun, quirky things that people were doing, home workouts. And we reached out to them and asked them if they could send us those videos. And so we did kind of a montage of locals and how they're making the most of the time and making the most out of a terrible situation. And that one has also been received very, very well. And so I think you've all seen plenty of heartwarming videos on Instagram or on Facebook from your locals. And so we're taking advantage of that and making that into a piece that people could feel proud of, and also provide some comfort and segue into the recovery phase.
Amazing.
I was really happy with how that one turned out. But other than that, I think like everyone's been doing, we automatically became a resource for information. We created a make the most of McAllen.com website as a resource of information, CARES Act information, PPP application, unemployment benefits. But as a department within the chamber and close partners with our city, we have leveraged those partnerships to get the most up-to-date information. Any government assistance programs. Our city has a 311 call center where anybody, if they have any questions about a local business, or they doing retail, or they to go, or they doing curbside delivery, that call center is able to answer any of those questions and be a resource for our locals.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, that's amazing to see kind of how your community has been coming together and doing such a great job to support each other. And I love the idea of kind of leveraging the sports tournament to still kind of give them a shout out, even though they're not able to host that this year.
Yeah.
Another community that is in a similar situation from the, leading edge perspective of opening up pretty early is Andy Williams, who is the CEO of Visit Roswell in Georgia. Andy, as part of the Atlanta metro area, you're definitely in that kind of, like Rob, in that kind of leading edge of destinations that are planning on opening up sooner rather than later, thanks to, kind of some of the things that your governors have been talking about. For your community, how is your community choosing to respond to how your state is handling the opening of business in your area?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So we're a suburb of Atlanta, about 20 miles north, population of about 96,000. And most of our hotels are limited service. We're a big time leisure destination and social destination, especially for weddings. And, just to the south of us is Atlanta with a massive convention center and, convention hotels. So, we're different in that regard, but Georgia was one of the last states to close and the first to open up. So there's obviously been a lot of controversy around that and a lot of various opinions. For us, I can tell you, I think we were a little, shocked to hear that we were going to be opening up so soon, and especially to see the list of who was allowed to open up the soonest. It's been interesting too, because the majority of our restaurants, we're a big culinary destination. The majority of our restaurants have actually, kind of cohesively made the decision to not open up right away and to keep offering curbside delivery and to go orders and things of that nature. It puts us in an interesting situation because, we have had a number of restaurants and businesses that have gone ahead and made the decision to open up, and there are 39 guidelines that have come down from the governor's office that they have to follow in order to operate at this point. And what we've learned is a lot of those that have chosen to open up have been spending this time for the past couple of weeks really preparing and being proactive for that. And a lot of them have been doing kind of infrastructural enhancements within their restaurants and places of business. Restaurants that have gone in and done full sterilizations and painted, and they've used this as an opportunity to go ahead and move tables out, knowing that only a certain amount of patrons would be allowed within a certain, I think it's a certain amount per 500 square feet for dining in. Then, we've even got salons that have gone in and done actual construction work to spread stations out and prepare for that. So for us, what we've learned is, the past few weeks, we've been extremely proactive in spreading the good word about sending business to the restaurants and to the different partners who are doing things creatively. And now that there's such a difference in opinion, one thing that we really learned quickly with this announcement is that you are either on one side or you're on the other. There's not a lot of middle ground. You think that we should get the economy back running 100%, or, you think no way in heck, it's too soon. So puts the CVB in an interesting place because, obviously we don't want to be in the position to have to take a side necessarily. So we shifted in being extremely proactive and promoting to being fact-based. And, with the help of Tempest with our website and the CRM, we've been able to establish that support our community page, where we on a daily basis keep up with what everybody's doing, hours of operation, the shift in format and models, and everything related to that. And when people reach out, it simply becomes, hey, here's where you're going to find all of that information. Make your own decision based on what you think is best, what's best for your family, your health. And so from there, we really use that as an opportunity just to be fact-based and information-based, and to be the one organization in the city of Roswell that has that most up-to-date information at our fingertips. So that's certainly gone a long way. People have seemed to really appreciate that. They've been responding well to it. And, another thing that we're really looking forward to, and I would encourage anybody that has this opportunity, our mayor has established a recovery task force, and it's made up of myself from the CVB. We've got economic development partners, City of Roswell staff, and then there are 20 local business owners that span everything from, a local wine market all the way up to companies that employ 1,500 people. And it's an opportunity for them to be a sounding board. It's an opportunity for us to have an open forum about what we've seen and then what this is going to look like coming out of it. And taking into account that what one business sees may be totally different than what another business thinks they're going to experience. And it's an opportunity also for our city leadership to come to the table to see where they are going to be able to support. So I would say anyone that's able to work your way into a situation like that and get yourself a seat at that table, I would highly encourage that, because we all know that tourism and DMOs are going to be vital to bringing our economies back within our local destinations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. Really appreciate you lending your perspective. I know it's been interesting to see how the community has responded, like you said, on both sides of the issue. And I know your community has been doing a lot of work to navigate that. One of our other communities that has definitely had a lot of opinions around travel and tourism is Sedona, Arizona. Jennifer Wesselhoff, the president and CEO of Visit Sedona and the Sedona Chamber of Commerce, is joining us. And Jen, I know that your organization is kind of unique in the regard that you have kind of a blended approach where you're filling the role of both a tourism bureau and a chamber of commerce. How are you kind of building coalitions in your community and working to plan for that recovery as your community prepares to welcome back travelers?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share our perspective and what we're doing here in Sedona with the group. Today, I really wanted to focus sort of on three main categories of what we're doing: communication, data, and hope. And first, as it relates to communication, it's very similar to some of the other speakers. As a Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau, it gives us distinct opportunities to really garner input from our businesses. So communication with our businesses has been incredibly important throughout this whole pandemic, sharing information, partnering on educational webinars with our local community college, with the SBA, with the Small Business Development Center, and really just help the business community try to manage their expectations a little bit in terms of what reopening looks like. We're asking them for a lot of feedback. We're engaging them whenever possible, and asking them what are their plans for safety as it relates to reopening. Because ultimately our community, our communication strategy to businesses, to visitors, and to locals is really an effort to try to answer the question of how do we balance the risk to lives versus the risk to livelihoods. And I think it was Andy that mentioned, you're either in one camp or the other camp, that we're opening too soon or we're opening too slowly. And our communications efforts to those three target audiences has really been an effort to try to find the middle ground and try to move people towards the middle. Through consensus building and planning and sharing information. We developed some talking points for our board members, stakeholders, and community leaders as it relates to that middle ground. And we'll talk a little bit about that, some of the points in that, in point number 2, because data really drives a lot of that conversation. But really trying to focus on what our community and our businesses can do to keep their employees safe, their customers safe, and ultimately the community safe, because our locals are extremely stressed out about opening too soon and having other states that may still have a stay-at-home order, like California, which is our number 2 overnight market, what impacts they're going to have on our community. So really trying to communicate to our locals what we are doing and what we aren't doing is just as important, that they know what our efforts are in terms of a measured approach, and communicating that same message with our businesses so that they know that we are not going to jump back into a 70% occupancy. I mean, right now Sedona is at about a 10 or 11% occupancy right now. And in order to be safe and responsible, we need to take the recovery a little bit more slowly. So just communicating those expectations from the very beginning with the businesses and the locals are really important. We participated in a joint statement that was a regional statement of all of our regional mayors and chambers of commerce about safety being the first priority as we begin to reopen the economy. And Arizona is also, just to let you know, in a little unusual period right now, because technically our governor's executive order to stay at home is scheduled to expire at the end of the day tomorrow. And he has not made an announcement yet about what reopening looks like, or if he's going to extend the executive order for a bit more time. So we're in a little bit of an unknown period, and have been really for the last week, of businesses wanting to get prepared to open as of May 1st, because that's when the executive order expires, but also not knowing what that looks like from a state level. So it's a bit of a challenge. Our communication to visitors has really just been aspirational and inspirational, providing all of our virtual services, answering questions. You know, most of our visitor questions are all about, I'm scheduled to come visit in June. what will Sedona be like then? And, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if we're going to be open in May, if we're going to be open in June. So really just trying to give them the best information that we have available, driving them to what is open right now and using our website as the best tool for that. And then we're also starting to think about, what does reopening our physical visitor center look like? What does that look like? We're installing some plexiglass to divide sort of the workers and the visitors, and developing a plan of, you know, counting the number of people who go in, providing masks, you know, doing all the things that we'll be expecting our entire community to do. But it's just going to be so different as we phase that approach. The second thing I just really wanted to talk about is data and using our communications with our businesses and our relationships and partnerships regionally to collect data, because data is king. You know, surveying the partners, the businesses, to find out what they are planning, who has applied for funds, who has received funds, how many people they've laid off. The issue that we're facing and have faced for the last month is that things are just moving so quickly that we don't have a good handle on what is really happening. We have a lot of anecdotal information. So data has been king. It's allowed us to go back to our congressmen and our senators and say, hey, look, only 40% of the people who have applied have gotten money from the government. And they need that information in order to get funds moving at the congressional level. So data has been incredibly important. The weekly Smith Travel research information has been helpful because we were able to then look at, okay, the last 28 days in 2019, Sedona served about 300,000 visitors. And the same 28-day period, we were at 30,000. So a 90% decline in visitors. And it's data like that that gives us the tools to go back to the community to say, look, this isn't sustainable. Maybe 300,000 isn't where we want to get back to. We agree, we're not ready for that, but 30,000 is not sustainable. And so data is really giving us the opportunity to provide some of these talking points to find some balance to recover, and balance to find some of that middle ground. And then lastly, a lot of our efforts have been around providing hope. Hope to our businesses and our residents, you know, really making sure that they know that we have the best interests of not just the businesses, but the community at large. When there are a lot of unknowns, there's a ton of fear, and fear brings out crazy, angry emotions. And we don't want any potential visitors who may be here to be the target of local residents who may be upset that we have people visiting from California or outside of the state. So we're illustrating that we have a plan. We also put together a Sedona Tourism Economic Recovery Task Force, which is giving people the opportunity to provide input to our plan, and gives us the opportunity to share the research that we know, or that at least we're hearing in terms of tourism. And it also helps give a unified message that's really future focused and really responsible and measured. So, I mean, we know that the government is trying to find a middle path. We think it can be done, but it won't be done without controversy. My hope is that despite all of these difficulties, we can still remain strong and do what's best for our community, trusting that in the end we'll be stronger and more unified as a community in the long run. So
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I know that we're coming up to the top of the hour, but I definitely want to give Eddie, the Director of Marketing and Communications from Visit Big Bear, the opportunity to chime in as well. Eddie, you and your organization have started creating some best practices for your community to kind of help facilitate the reopening of individual properties and businesses. What kind of process are you going through as you're navigating that with your partners?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny, and thanks for having me. This webinar has been very educational, and I've found that you guys have done the best job in really preparing us with some tools and some useful things for us to utilize during this time. So thank you for that. Big Bear Lake is, some of you might be familiar with the destination, but we are a mountain lake town in Southern California, about 100 miles east of Los Angeles, which is our main market. We're primarily a drive market destination, and we're a small town. So we have about, in the entire valley, you know, maybe around 15,000 full-time residents. But in the city of Big Bear Lake itself, that's about 5,000. So it's very small, and our economy is almost entirely focused on tourism, with a lot of the businesses sort of being very small mom and pop, independently owned businesses that don't have a lot of resources. And there's not a lot of built-in resources in Big Bear Lake for these businesses. So a lot of them have struggled with submitting their PPP requests and things like that. So they really need as much help as they can get from, you know, anyone. The governor of California has really sort of held tight to not opening up California right away, taking more of a cautious approach to, you know, how California will reopen. But we do suspect or expect, you know, through the different phases that he's kind of outlined, in the next couple of weeks, things will begin to be reopened. And in terms of what is going on locally, the city council has put together a committee to basically create a rule book for how businesses will be able to reopen, probably similar to some of the guidelines that are already kind of being created for states that are reopening, like Texas. And so there's kind of already been a rule book created, but you know, that's not enough for a lot of these small businesses. And us as sort of a prominent organization in the community really feels like we need to kind of step up and give them something a little bit more, you know, more in detail, more prepared for what they're going to have to do. Basically, you know, there's sort of, we've seen these 6 workplace essentials, and our guide is kind of prepared on these 6. So for lodging, for recreation, for retail, and for restaurants, you know, we're sort of preparing this collection of guidelines that sort of outline how to go about preparing your building for reopening, how to educate and train your staff, and making sure that they understand, you know, how things will have to operate after a COVID-19 reopening, making sure that your business is establishing a controlled access plan so they're not being too overwhelmed with too many, you know, people visiting the business at once, which would also include kind of the social distancing plan, and then obviously eliminating or removing any possible touch points that can be avoided, as well as, you know, really cleaning and disinfecting any touch points that can't be. So, you know, door handles, countertops, things like that. And then basically using that plan to, you know, communicate to the visitors and to the residents, hey, we as a community are really doing this this project or this plan to really establish your trust that as much as possible, we're minimizing the risk of community spread from COVID-19. So that's sort of our goal is to basically complement whatever the rules are going to be with essentially a playbook for best practices for these businesses that aren't really connected to larger organizations. Most of our hotels are independently owned. we actually, our private home rental companies vastly outnumbers the number of traditional lodges. So it's a little bit unique for us, but it's definitely definitely a great time for us to step into this role as we begin to work towards our T-bid renewal as well. So I definitely see this as an opportunity for us as much as it is, something that we're trying to solve a problem with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eddie. And I know that you are still working on that best practices document, but once it is complete and it's been shared with your community, you've also agreed to share that with us so that we can pass that on to everyone here as well, so that you can so that everyone here just know that, as the Visit Big Bear team finishes up their documentation, we'll be sharing that out so you can kind of see the direction that they're going to support their community, and hopefully use that as a resource for some of the things that you're working on for your individual communities. Of course, as all of this recovery continues to evolve, it's going to be a very shifting and changing situation. We are absolutely here to support you every step of the way. Please don't hesitate to reach out if we can help you in any way. Our CRM support team is on standby waiting to help you out with any of the systems that we talked about earlier in the webinar. Our web support team is also here to help you in any way that we can, and we're going to be continuing to update our website with additional resources, more information. Again, we are recording this webinar and we'll be sharing that with you. So definitely check back to our website for a copy of this presentation, and make sure to stay in touch with us. Let us know any way we can help support you and your community as the recovery happens over here over the next couple weeks. So thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We really appreciate you sticking around. I know we ran a little bit long, but wonderful information from everybody today. We thank you so much. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
All right. Thank you.